All right, everyone, I've got top of the hour. We've got 11 a.m. on the West Coast, 2 p.m. on the East. So we're really happy to have you all for a very special presentation today of Virtual Thursday. This is our 10th one of the year, and it is the 1st of July, and the year is absolutely flying by. So again, welcome everybody. To get us started, today's topic is documenting smoke alarm installations, and instead of just us training team talking about a part of the system, something to solve, we've got a very special guest that I'm going to introduce here in just a minute that is going to take us through a very creative way on how they've decided to use emergency reporting to do really what's a tremendously life-saving program in a large municipal jurisdiction. So today's team, we've got, there he is, Chief Michael Walker, Deputy Chief of Operations of the Oklahoma City Fire Department, and a new customer of emergency reporting. If I remember correctly, they started using us. Go live was February 1st of this year, and they're doing an absolutely amazing job in managing the data as they transition from their old system to the new, and they're just a first-rate organization. That's me. I'll be kind of your host and PowerPoint master today. And with me, we've got James Angerette, one of our trainers. I'm sure you've seen him on our other virtual Thursdays. We have Michael Fabian, one of our soon-to-be full-time trainers, Greg Simmons, and Sean Sims, both part-time trainers. And let me just make sure I didn't miss any other of my team members. I think I got them all. So that's going to be the team that's going to be with you throughout the day. Well, not the day, at least the next hour. And we'll be answering, the whole team here will be answering questions if you have them. And of course, as always, type them in the questions panel in your GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar control panel. So any questions, as I mentioned, please enter them in the chat. We will answer them all. If we don't get to them all within the time period, we can do one of two things. We can go ahead and close out the session and reach out to you via email, or we'll keep the session going. Everybody else is welcome to depart, and we'll stay with you and answer the questions. And of course, we'll stay on today's topic, which is a unique way of using emergency reporting to manage a smoke alarm installation program. All right, just a quick couple tidbits about some training opportunities. You're in our free virtual Thursday that happens the first Thursday of every month at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. We also have online training available to you in 1, 2, or 3 hour blocks and fully customized to meet your needs. We have on-site training, again, where you host it and we come to you. In fact, James just got back from Alabama, and Mark Wolf, who was usually in the pilot seat here, he is currently in, let me make sure I get it right. I believe he's in Tennessee. Yes, he's currently in Tennessee teaching. And then we have our regional training academies. Speaking of regional training academies, we've got our true first go for a regional training academy, October 19th to the 21st in Austin, Texas. All right, so we hope to see you there. It's going to be, again, Austin, Texas, October 19th to the 21st, 2021, and I'll put the link for registration later on in the chat. So if you want to come and learn live, because we're all different learners, right? We've been very, very successful in online training, and we love it, right? It's very effective, very successful, but sometimes being in the same room with the trainers, spending some one-on-one time with them helps you really learn the system in a different way. So hopefully we can get that filled very quickly and have a terrific event in October. All right, to contact us, there's our email address, training@emergencyreporting.com. If you need something, that's the go-to email. And then of course, you've got our main site, other than the login page, you've got our what we call our marketing site, which is simply emergencyreporting.com. All right, so I am very proud to introduce Deputy Chief Michael Walker. He's been with the Oklahoma City Fire Department since 1990. He is currently the Chief of Operations and has served in that role since 2017. He has a degree in municipal fire protection from OSU. He's been a fire service instructor for 28 years, and he's been allowed to teach in multiple national and international venues, including FDIC, which is coming up in the first week in August, as well as serving as a facilitator for the Oklahoma State University Executive Fire Officer Program. Within his career, you can see he's also served as a task force leader for Task Force 1, He's been a BC in the 3 separate battalions in Oklahoma City. He's a technical rescue officer, hazmat team officer, and a training officer. And Chief Walker and his wife, Chris, have been married since 2004, 4 grown children, 3 grandchildren, and they reside in South Oklahoma City. And Chief Walker, I don't know if you want to, but certainly if you want to say hello with your camera on, I'm sure everybody would love to meet you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to presenting what we're doing.
Right on. Thanks, Chief. Yep, you guys are in for a treat here, and pay close attention because there's a process that he's got going on here, and it's pretty amazing. So, Chief, I'm going to advance on into into the presentation here, and we're going to give you a summary of what Chief and his team have done in Oklahoma City, and then, like we always do, we're going to go into the system. But instead of me or a trainer, we're going to have Chief Walker walk you through how he set it all up in the system, and then we'll be here to answer questions throughout the presentation. So Chief, I am going to advance, and just you tell me when you're ready to advance to the next slide, and we'll get this great presentation on the road here.
All right, good deal. All right, so within Oklahoma City, we have a very robust smoke alarm installation program. It's called Project Life. This is something that not only do we receive money from the city budget, but we also do fundraisers throughout the year to be able to provide smoke alarms for all of the residents within Oklahoma City. So in essence, if they own a home in Oklahoma City and they want a smoke alarm, we'll come install the smoke alarms up to code. So that means, smoke alarm in every bedroom and outside the hallway, and at least one on every living level of the house. So that means that we're doing about 10,000 smoke alarm installs every single year. So when we first started the program, one of the difficulties were getting the residents in touch with the fire station, because a lot of times when they would call, they wouldn't be there. They'd be out on calls or doing training or whatever else. So we came up with some ways that the residents could contact us and just leave a message, and to increase the chances that they're going to have a successful smoke alarm install. So one of them, we came up with a phone line, and we have a language line, so it doesn't matter what language they speak. We're able to translate it through our dispatch office. So all they've got to do is call 297 beep, leave a message, and then we get the demographics from that message and are able to install the smoke alarm. We've also given them an online option so they can fill out the request, and our goal is to get those alarms installed within 24 hours of the request. We don't always achieve that, but that's what we try to do. Okay, so I'm ready to go to the next slide. All right, so the way we use this whenever they call 297 beep or they go to the website is it is our community service liaisons, or CSLs, and these are 24-hour suppression personnel that we use for various support functions, to include on structure fires. Their primary job is to take care of the displaced residents. Well, besides that, they're the ones that process the smoke alarm installation requests. And so when they'll listen to the recording, we'll get the demographics, and then they'll divvy these assignments out to the appropriate station, the closest station, to the closest station to the request. And they had challenges also getting a hold of the stations because they're out and about, and then just sending an email wasn't as reliable as we needed it to be, because if someone was off or on loan or out at training, they may not receive that email as efficiently as we needed. So our crews also, they'll install a smoke alarm if they're on the scene of an incident. Now, residents, it's made a pretty significant impact to the residents, and I hear about the good things quite often whenever they say, hey, we called the fire department to our house, they helped us with a small problem, but while they were here, they installed smoke alarms. So when they did that and they're on scene, it was a little bit of a documentation challenge, because they'd have to write some things down on the incident or the scene, and then come back and enter it, and it caused a double data entry type issue. So sometimes we weren't keeping as track with the smoke alarm installs and getting credit for the work. Okay, next slide. So since we started using emergency reporting, what we've been able to do is come up with an entire workflow process. And we were figuring out, experimenting with different things within emergency reporting. unable to get this workflow, and we realized that if we did it through the occupancy module and basically set it up as an inspection, this would allow us to do, from the CSLs making the assignment to the stations being notified about it, also being able to process not only successful attempts, but also whenever we have situations where we're unable to get a hold of the resident. We do have instances, and it's more common than you might think, that someone will call and request a smoke alarm install, and then we can never get a hold of them again. They're never home, or they give us a bogus address or something along that line, and we're able to track those types of instances as well by using the inspections within the occupancy module to do that. We're also able to get a count of not only that we've installed the alarms, but how many alarms that we install each month. It also is helping us get residential occupancies within the occupancy module. And I realize traditionally a lot of fire departments haven't worried about that as much, but what makes it nice also through the occupancy module, since the occupancies go on a map, all right, that's data that we can use as a visualization. Because another aspect that we do, and I failed to mention in the previous slide, is that if we have a fire fatality in a neighborhood, then we're going to follow up with a smoke alarm install push as soon as we can after that happens. We see that we have a very high success rate after there's an event in the neighborhood of getting smoke alarms installed. And so in those situations, we'll partner with the American Red Cross. They'll bring out their volunteers and our crews, and we try to get those alarms installed. And that's been successful as well. So we can keep track of all of that, and being able to have show these inspections on a map. When we look back later, we can see that there's areas that we've had success in getting alarms in, or the areas that we need to try to do a push in. All right, next slide, please. All right, so one of the first things that is important that we stress to our crews is that on their dashboard is that they set up their notifications. The occupancy module, since it allows the zones to be separate from your response modules, we were able to set up the occupancy zones per station. And this will make sense why we do that, especially whenever I show you the example in a second. So the first thing we get the crews to do is to set up their notifications on inspections, is that they apply the filter to their particular station or their zone, their occupancy zone. And then we also want them to show the inspection types, not so the overdue inspections. We're not so much worried about the inspection types at this point because we don't have that many in the system. But at some point we could change that specifically to the smoke, the project life inspections. So what that does for us, if you look at in the lower right of the screen, once the CSLs assign the smoke alarm installation, it shows up on their dashboard. So anybody who's assigned to station 35, in the case that I've got up on the example, is next time they're in the ER, that shows that, hey, there's a smoke alarm installation that needs to be done, and then they can begin the process of working that installation. Okay, next slide, please. Right, so what the CSLs do, it takes them about 2 minutes worth of data entry time, which is much faster than them making multiple phone calls and sending emails and hoping that it gets to the correct person. This allows them, even if they've got to create the occupancy, they can get it done fairly quickly. They then, once they've got the occupancy created, and we encourage them to include a contact within that occupancy, is they then assign it as a single inspection, and at that point the CSL is done. They can move on about their day, and then whenever the personnel who were assigned to that station, as I said previously, whenever they log on, they see that they've got a smoke alarm installation to process. Next slide. So the station, once they get a hold of it and they'll see it on their dashboard, you can see that on the upper right of your screen, that he says that there's the Walker residence needs a smoke alarm installed. They just click on the icon that will open up the inspection itself. And once that opens up, if they click on the contacts, and I'll show this here I'll demonstrate this a little later in the presentation. Once they click on the occupancy, what they can do without having to go to the occupancy's house, there's a phone number. And what we encourage them to do is try to call them first and set up an appointment. If they miss the call, they can process this and in the results of the inspection by either saying that they had a no contact. And we've made it our policy within the department that we're going to try to make 3 different attempts on 3 separate days. And after the 3rd attempt, we'll process it as a no contact final attempt and clear that off our plate. And we won't assign any re-inspections. And that doesn't happen that often, but it does occur from time to time. Okay, next slide. So whenever they, if they do have a miss attempt, whenever they open the inspection, you'll see that it defaults and will assign the inspector automatically. And the way I've got this set up, and I'll show it here in a little bit, is we have the inspection types by shift, A, B, and C shift. And this will make sense to you why I set that up when it comes to the reporting and being able for the shifts, each individual shift and station to be able to track their own activity. So they choose whichever inspection type is respective to their shift. They use the correct form, contact, Mr. Dirt in this case, and try to get a hold of them. All right, next slide, please. All right, there's one question on the inspection because we didn't need it to be a super long thing. So once they choose, select the one question, we've made it to where the options will answer, the observations will answer everything that we need to. And when they click on the add observation remarks and attachments, there's an explanation. If it's been a while since they've done one, it'll tell them, how they can use the different options. So again, the choices that they'll have is either the number of alarms that they've installed, which we've got it where up to 6. We haven't, and the only reason why we went up to 6 is that's the most we've ever had to install in any one single family dwelling. And again, we'll do up to 3, no contacts, but we can also, if they were to call, the Dirt residents and they say, well, I can't do it today, but I can do it tomorrow. We can still process, that shift can still process that inspection. It'll go into their daily log that they made an attempt and they just scheduled the inspection for the next day. So whenever the blue shift shows up and they open up the log book, it's still on their dashboard that the Dirts, in this case, need to have a smoke alarm installed. And so we can also, if we've got it to where if we miss the appointment, say we're going over to their house to install the alarm, we catch a call, that we can go back and show that we did, get a hold of the residents, reschedule the appointment, but still give an explanation of what occurred in a very brief snapshot. Okay, next slide, please. So once they get to they answer the one question, get to finalize and sign, the conclusions or the summaries or the results, excuse me, are pretty close. They use the same answer. They click that and then they're ready to go on and finalize it and authorize it. So next slide. Once they authorize it, it logs it in their logbook and they've got credit for what they've done. And so there again, it's tracking it, and then we can run a report on that activity at the end of the month and see what all they're doing on that. Next slide. So as far as the reports, when we get to the end of the month, what we're using right now is report 1832. And again, on the inspection types, the respective shifts can do A, B, and C. If it's on my end, if I'm looking at it from an administrative level, I just leave it blank and let it run all of them. Or I can do a custom list and name it for all 3 shifts, whatever you prefer on that. And then on the occupancy zones, again, if you're at the administrative level, just run it for all of your zones. But the station, they can run it down to their particular station, or the battalion chiefs, again, it has a pick multiple custom list option that they can create and save the list for the stations in their battalion. Encourage people to make a custom list for the observation values, and the observation values themselves, it's easy to identify those because they'll say Project Life in front of them, so it helps it run the report a little bit cleaner. And they can do the same thing with the results. But it is one of those that if they can just get that it's smoke alarms and they leave the rest of it alone, we can still get a decent report from this. So it it's a clean way for us to get that information. All right, next slide. So what we do is they run the report, and again, you can see these are all of the observations, A, B, and C shift. You know, how many alarms were installed, and then we it just encourage them. Or what they'll do is they'll do an Excel download. Once they've downloaded it to you know, the downloads, we created a workbook that they can just paste that data in, and it'll give us a clean report. So next slide, please. Once they copy and paste the Excel download into our workbook, it automatically produces this report, and then it'll say how many total alarms were installed, but it also captures, you know, that there were times that we did have contact with the resident and we made an appointment. There were a couple of instances where we had a difficult time getting a hold of somebody, and in this case we had 2 people that we made 3 different attempts over the month. Over the last month to get a hold of them, and we were unsuccessful. So that is what we're trying to do. So that's cradle to grave on how we're processing our smoke alarms. Next slide.
Okay. All right, that is the slide presentation, Chief. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass the screen over to you so you can be our presenter,
Okay.
and then so we hope Chief's whetted your appetite here to see how this plays out in action, and so that's what he's going to show us all next here. So stand by. And make presenter, and what will happen, Chief, is you will be probably prompted to pick the screen you wish to share.
Okay. Okay, so there we go. All right,
there it is.
Okay.
We got your welcome. We've got the welcome page dashboard.
Wonderful. All right, so this is in our sandbox account. The way this would work is, so someone is called the CSL or called the 297 beep line. So the CSL would go to the occupancy tab. They can do a test, to, you know, a search to see if it exists. All right, in this case, it is the Griswolds, and they live at 615 Northwest 8th. All right, so I can just see if there's anybody in here that's Northwest 8th. All right, nope, nobody's in here, so they're gonna make a new occupancy.
Hey, Chief, one of the things as you go through this, because I know there might be some questions, I noticed that you put in do you put in the name of the person, the occupants, or do you have a different way of documenting the name of the occupancy as a residence? And I see there's the answer.
Yeah, that seems to be working now. Is there a chance that different stations, different crews are gonna, you know, have a little bit of, you know, change how they do that? Yes, and that's okay. The main thing is that we get the address the right way in here, and but so because the resident could change, but so far it's working for us in that. All right, so I looked it up, and they live on 8th Street. They're right, and I know that it's very important that I know what zip code they live in, so I'm going to go down to my 8th Street options. Northwest. Probably should have picked a. There we go. And the house number is 1615. So again, they once they hit save, it'll give the Latin law on this. We don't use the contacts in this because that's not where it pulls the contacts up from. But if they do put it in there, it's not going to hurt anything. I added single family dwelling, and again, so on the occupancy zone, we go ahead and do the station on here, but the occupancy zone is what's going to get it where it triggers it, where it goes to their logbook. So yes, it looks a little odd to see both of them there, but it's not, no harm, no foul type thing. So they've got that saved. So now the Griswold residence has been created. We encourage them to go ahead and add a contact here, and this will make sense later on because we also do residential burn permits and other things where we could be interacting with. the resident later on, and it's good to have that his history on that.
Chief, while you're typing that, Rich Lower down in Mount Dora, Florida, another one of your counterparts that does a great job with the system. He's wondering if you add new residential occupancies as you do smoke detector installs, or do you ever import batches of residences into the system prior to doing a smoke alarm installation?
Right now, we're adding them as we go. We're still, since we're new, we're working on right now of importing occupancies. And if obviously if they were imported in, that would be super handy. We just haven't gotten to that point yet.
Excellent, understood. Thank you.
So they've got that entered. All right, so now we've got the Griswold. So the CSL goes to inspection. They're going to assign a single inspection. All right, and so it is the blue shift that is working today. They can do it for today. They can add it, and the CSL is now done effectively with their part of it. If I go back to the my dashboard, you can see right here that here's the Griswold residence that I entered on here. So now it's switched gears. Now I'm the person that is at Fire Station 1. They see this pop up. Now they click on the icon. Now I'm going to try to get a hold of the Griswold. So there's Mr. Griswold, the owner. I give him a call, see if they answer, and if they do, then I'll just kind of let this hold, right, or close it out. Go back to and figure out when we're going to go out there. And because what I want to do is I'm going to open this whenever I get on scene and we're actually installing it, so it gives us credit for the time, and it'll help us track that as well. So we've now, Griswold said, hey, come on out. So great. So now I'm at the Griswold house. All right, so my inspection type, since I'm blue shift, I'm going to pick this, the form, restaurant, fill from contacts. So we've got that in there. And I'm, if I'm the station officer, I'm having this conversation, as the crew is installing the smoke alarms. So since again, it's just one question, so it's easy. So it's, say on this particular case, we got to install 4 smoke alarms. We can put remarks in here if we need to, but we don't have to. Once that's done, we go to finalize and sign. And again, since I went through it so fast, it doesn't show that, but if you were on scene for 15 minutes, hey, it would capture that. So here are my inspection results. Oh, since I'm in Sandbox, it's not showing all the different ones that I put in here. All right, so a successful install. Oh, it is. So successful install, and I don't need to schedule a single inspection, but if I wanted to, all right, I can do another one, all right, and do it for 10 years out if I needed to. All right, so I take this out to 2029 or 2030, 2031, yeah, and add it. And so then that in 10 years from now, they'll get an alert, since we put up 10-year smoke alarms, that, hey, it's time to go check the Griswolds for a smoke alarm. And so once they go to next, authorize it. So I want to remove all the old ones from there. And then here's an option. They can do the view and inspect and email this to, excuse me, wrong button. If they want to email this to the Griswolds, they can do that. Again, this is where it's nice if we have the contacts. And if there's any others, if we want to pass along any other safety information to them, anything that we think is relevant, we can include this as a file, send that to them. And now they've got a receipt, basically that we came out and installed the smoke alarms in their house. So nice little professional thing that we can provide them easy enough from the inspection form itself. So when I go back to my station 1, when I go back, here it is. community risk reduction, smoke alarm install, and there it is. If I need to go back and add the personnel who are on the list or the rig, excuse me, just go the same way that you would normally do this, and it's not going to work because I'm in Sandbox. But go to the list and pick from roster and get people on there. And so it would add those people's name, but there's nobody on that rig, so that's not going to work. So I'm the only one who's going to get credit for it. All right, so that's how the installation can go. And now another part, the way this could go, again, so now let's go back to the dirt residents. All right, so I'm A shift. I've got the contact in. So I contact Joe Dirt, and they say, you can do it tomorrow. I'm at work today, but you can do it tomorrow. So then go to their question, look at the results. And on this one, they go appointment scheduled, save it. So now we've got the result of that. Again, appointment scheduled. We're not worried about any of this other part. Oops, sorry, showing the sloppiness of this being in Sandbox. They authorize it, and then oh, I skipped a step. They could have scheduled let me go back to. It may not let me now. They can schedule the appointment for the next day whenever they're on finalize and sign, and then whenever they do that. In fact, let me do that. Unlock it. They can schedule a single inspection and just do it for tomorrow and say it's going to be the A shift's working tomorrow. They schedule it for tomorrow, add it, and then go to authorize and sign it. So now when I go back to home, I still get this that smoke alarm installation, all right, and inspection was completed. All right, so it captures there, but it still shows here, but you notice that the date for the inspection is already made for the next day. So that's how they can keep track of that. So I'm pretty sure you guys can follow how the rest of the choices would go. So now it's at the end of the month. You want to look at the reports. Again, they're going to go 1832. Let's run this for the previous month. And again, if I leave this, if it's just the A shift that wants to look at what they did, they can run it for just their shift or B shift or C shift. If it's one of the shift commanders, they can pick all three shifts or whatever shift they want to. And then the zones, again, if I'm in the battalion chief 601, just pick that, and that's going to pick all the 6 stations that are in that battalion. Again, you can leave these alone if you want to, or if you want, or if we wanted them, just get those that are specific to Project Life, we can. And the same thing with our successful installs. But then they run the report. Right, so it has a lot of these values on here. We're going to do an Excel download. All right, and then I'm going to do something here. Can you still see my screen, Tom?
I am seeing the Excel spreadsheet.
Okay, so this is the workbook that we made. That if they open this, follow the instructions, and it'll tell them what to do once they download the report. I'm sorry, I'm being a little bit choppy on what I'm saying here. I'm waiting for this to open up. Make sure it didn't open up on the wrong screen on my computer. Good old Excel. I don't know why it's not opening. There, okay. Is it going to open it? Well, shoot. Sorry, guys. Whatever reason.
It's okay. It's demo demons. It never fails.
Yeah. So all they have to do is whenever they open. Wait a minute. No, I know what I'm doing wrong. Here it comes. All right. So once they've opened this up, again, they can just do the Excel download, basically select the whole document, copy it, then they paste it in, and it causes the report to be created. Now, again, that was done by somebody who's much better at Excel than I am, but this makes it where they've got something that they can view, and it captures all of the activity that they did for the month. So,
Hey, Chief, we've got a couple questions here. One, I think we can hold a little bit later because they were questioning about how you get it to display as a community risk reduction daily log item, and we'll talk about how you need to set each inspection type to a unique daily log activity code. But the one question, and I'm glad this one came up because it's one that I would expect too, is Douglas is wondering, do your fire inspectors use ER also? And are there any conflicts between the inspectors and their code-based inspections versus the residential smoke alarm installation program?
So far, there hasn't been. The inspectors have not moved over to emergency reporting, but whenever I was building this, it was in conjunction with the fire marshal's office. One of the other inspections that we do from suppression is restaurant inspections. That takes some of the workload off of our code compliance officers. So they're going to be transitioning over more and more, but the way we fix this, or to try to clean it up, is the codes. Let me go back to that so I can show you on the different options.
Yeah, as he's doing that, guys, what's important to keep in mind too is it's okay. You can isolate it. It has minimal conflict because you'll have your commercial occupancies and you can filter the main occupancy grid if you choose to filter, or certainly search per occupancy. And then when you're creating, and we'll visit this here before the presentation's over, but in settings, if he's set up very specific with the prefix Project Life. So when the inspectors go and complete their code-based inspections, they have different observation values and different inspection results, and it's well defined so that both projects can successfully, and right here's an observation, both core functions of Oklahoma City Fire's Community Risk Reduction Department can accommodate both quite nicely. And so he'll show you that here in a second. And then I'll defer to Chief on this one, but Sherry's asking if there is a way that participants could get a copy of that Excel spreadsheet.
Oh, absolutely.
If
you're working an ABC shift, yeah, it'll work. Now, as far as the coding, if you needed to tweak it, I cannot answer your questions. It was a very smart guy on our staff that built it. Now, he'll be probably happy to talk to you about it, but yes, be happy to share that.
I appreciate it. And Chief will get it to me, guys, and then what we can do is we can just either, if you're interested in it, just put a note here in the chat and we'll make sure we get that to you. I already have Sherry on the list, and then we'll go through all of the responses and make sure those that wish it will get it. So
as we've made it where it was Project Life in front of them, and unless it was the smoke alarm, so it's very specific to that. And then as the inspectors, if we go down, this is our restaurant inspection options. And then as they add others, you know, I can see this list getting longer, but so far it's worked fine. Sorry it took me so long to answer your question. Anything else? All right, Tom, what do you want to do now?
And of course, I'm talking as I'm muted. So we're getting people that are requesting the spreadsheet. So those of you that have done it, absolutely no problem at all. As far as getting that to you, I'll review the questions here and make sure those that have requested it get that spreadsheet. Let's see what other questions we have. From Robert, how has this information and program helped with your AFGs, your assistance to firefighter grants?
We haven't attempted to do a firefighter grant from this yet, but we realize that being able to have clean data to show the activity will be very helpful with that, but we haven't needed to use it for that. We're just getting good and started with this.
Okay, and one more question from Anthony. United States Fire Administration requires incident reports for smoke alarm installs. Does the system import into the incident module for NFIRS reporting? So I'll tackle half of it and then you tackle the other half. I know in most of the jurisdictions I've worked with, they do not generate an incident report for smoke alarm installs. Certainly, if you get dispatched for an alarm sounding in a residence, most departments do indeed make an incident report, but I know, and I'll defer to Chief here, but I know most departments don't create an incident report for a smoke alarm installation program, and I believe that's the case with Oklahoma City. Is that right, Chief?
That's correct. What we were concerned about, I know that the U.S. Fire Administration is encouraging people to do it as an incident report. For us, it just seemed like we weren't comfortable with doing that yet. It seemed like there could be a lot of, for lack of a better word, junky incident reports. So we're gonna try to do this through the occupancy module without doing a NFIRS report. If they change their mind, it'll be, I guess we can switch it, but it's going to be harder for us to get the data out of it.
Yeah, I struggle with it because it's technically not an incident, right? In my world, but again, I know NFIRS and the United States Fire Administration have some alternative views on that.
Yeah. No, and again, I'm not. I don't want to seem judgmental to what other people are doing or throw rocks at what they're doing, because we also considered using the events module, and the reason why I ended up deciding on the occupancy primarily was the way it captures the address in the occupancy module is it ties to that map. There's so many different ways people can type in an address that it cleaned up the data significantly by doing it through the occupancy module. There also, it actually, not only can we capture how many smoke alarms we install, but we could catch that other aspect. So that's why, again, why we're doing occupancy module for that instead of events, in case somebody was curious about that.
That's an excellent point, because traditionally the events module is kind of geared up to do the smoke alarm programs, but because you have a very well-defined and mature smoke alarm program for a larger jurisdiction, you were able to find a way to make it work more effectively and capture data points that the events module may not be able to capture, or cannot capture, that you can using it as an inspection with a residential occupancy within the occupancy module. Let's see. We're going to run through some quick questions here, Chief, and I'll let you press on. I just want to make sure we get these covered.
I'm in no hurry.
So we create a run number for smoke alarms, JJ says. What would be the pros to doing this through occupancy inspections? And I think in a nutshell, it's just the data management of it, because you're able to capture the count of smoke alarms. You're able to capture the number of visits if they're not there. Chief, what other advantages do you see?
You pretty much hit it. You know, we're as far as the incidents that we're running on, I could see a case for counting it as an incident because it is a call for service. So I could understand that. There was just so many other questions that you have to answer in an NFIRS report that aren't applicable, where it seems to us at this point, this lets us just answer what we need to. We can still capture the data and get good information from it.
Excellent. Brian out of North Dakota asks, do you see this as being useful for getting additional points on your ISO assessment?
You know, I'm not sure if it would. We just finished our ISO audit, and they didn't question the amount of smoke alarm activity we've had, but I would feel more comfortable with what we're going with, that we can give not only just a spreadsheet that shows that we've installed smoke alarms, but we could we'll be able to show those visuals on a map, which I think will also, as time goes on, as we get more of these entered, to be able to speak to our residents, to be able to show them, hey, this is your neighborhood and this is how many smoke alarms that we've installed. And maybe that will encourage even more of them to take advantage of the program. But ISO wise, I'm not sure if I can give you a good answer on that.
Sounds good. And then Chris is asking, how to differentiate between smoke alarms installed during incident responses? So say you go to a call and you stick around and do an installation versus those that are requests, or do you differentiate those?
They just build the occupancy while they're there. And again, it's about a minute or two's worth of data entry and install and capture the install in the inspection is why we're doing it right now.
And Robert's hitting on the +1 code possibilities. Could ERS add a code for smoke alarm install as a public service so you can report them in incident reports? And as we look towards rewriting our incident module, that certainly is a possibility that we're looking closely at to allow agencies to create their own +1 codes. So that's something that could be, not saying it will be, but it could be available down the road. So excellent. And Anthony, you're very welcome. Thank you for those kind comments. Let's see here. Regarding creating incidents, Kevin, you could use you could use custom questions or user-defined fields to capture the data, and if you were to do it in an incident report. And I think, yeah, I think you've got some options, right, on how you wish to document a smoke alarm program. Some agencies may find it successful and effective to do it via an incident report. Others may prefer using events. And in this case, a larger municipality is preferring to use the flexibility and the versatility of the occupancy module to do it. So again, I guess if you went by United States Fire Administration, there might be a technical right way to do it. But again, I was going to defer locally too, because you need to manage a large project here, and using the occupancy module. When Chief showed me this, I thought, well, what a creative way to use our system to improve the safety of the community. And you don't have to tie it to a response, right? To an incident response where you get CAD involved, and then now you're, especially if a CAD interface, then you've got to get a call basically generated and dispatched ultimately. So again, there's no right way to do it. It's what's right for your organization and what's best for your organization. And so that's the beauty of the system. You have that versatility. In Louisiana, from Mike Mitchell, we enter smoke installs into a state fire marshal database because they provide the detectors to us. However, I've been entering our installs under events. I think this will be a better input option for in-house data tracking once I understand how to input it separate from other occupancies. And we're going to talk a little bit as we wind down the next, 13 minutes of the presentation in the settings as well. And you can see this is great because we've got different size departments, we've got different regions of the country participating today. And so we can have this conversation on what's going to be best for each of your organizations to not only effectively get the data in, right? Because you've got to make it user-friendly enough for the troops to do it right and do it right every time. And then extracting that data so you can tell your story, get funds, and basically tell the community on how this has been successful. And Chief will get into it, where they have had incidents where lives have been saved because they've installed smoke detectors or smoke alarms in residences within their community. And I'll let him share that in a little bit. But great, guys, the questions and the comments here have been fantastic. So Chief, back to you.
So back you were saying about when we do, another thing that we do when we install the smoke alarms is that we encourage the crews to write on the back of the alarm the crew and the date that it was installed. And so anytime if we do make a structure fire back there and when we see that there's one of our smoke alarms in there, and we make a big deal of it through our social media sites, and if we can get the media, if they come out to the scene and we can get them to talk about it, that's a way that we hype the importance of having smoke alarms installed. So Tom, do you want us to go over the settings on how we set that up? Do you want to take it back, or
No, I'll walk you through. I can walk you through it, or you set it up so you know what you're doing for sure. But one of the things you mentioned to me, you had an example of a relatively recent example where the results of the Project Life in Oklahoma City saved some lives. Is that correct?
Yeah. It actually, Tom, it happens a couple times a year.
Yeah.
where we see that, and of course it's a huge boost to morale whenever crews, because again, it's not as sexy as making a fire alarm, installing a smoke alarm to some crews, but every single time that they see that it's beneficial, we get, that's a big shot in the arm for people to realize, hey, this matters. And so and then it also matters to our city council whenever we're able to present to them that our smoke alarms, it's one of the things that we're starting to capture and presenting to council, is not only we're starting to emphasize how much property we saved and how many lives that we've saved every year. And those are rescues. We're doing the firefighter rescue survey, but if we get a save or somebody successfully is alerted because of our smoke alarm activation, even if it's not ours, we're happy that anybody's smoke alarm alerts them, but especially if it's ours, and that's had a very positive impact at City Council.
So what we'll do in the 10 minutes we've got remaining, Chief, of course, we'll address incoming questions, but there's two parts to the next 10 minutes. One, just a visit in the inspection settings, and then two, just kind of summarize, wrap up how you were able to effectively communicate expectations to the troops, because you've got hundreds of firefighters in your organization, and the data collection has been very strong, right? Very high quality. So maybe after we do the settings here, talk about how you were able to kind of inculcate that within the organization.
Okay, all right. So what do you want me to, like I said, on the occupancy zones, we just set those up by each station. And that was to make it where it would show up on the dashboard. I didn't mess with the occupancy categories. And Tom, if you want to highlight something that you think would be specific, don't hesitate.
Oh, no problem. The forms, I think creation of forms are pretty straightforward, but you made yours very simple, single question form. And then you've got in the inspection types, go ahead and show the types you've created and how you've connected them to a daybook activity code.
All right, so again, this is in Sandbox, so there's a couple of them in here that we're not actually using, but again, by doing it by the smoke alarms by shift, that's the way that we were able to basically not trick the system, but get the system to show the difference of activities. But then on the daybook activity, we just made it where it was community risk reduction, smoke alarm installation. So.
Okay, and then those of you, I'm sure many of you know, but the creation of the daybook activity codes are done in the admin module. So Chief, do me a favor, go on the left panel there, right click on admin and open up in a new tab, and we'll just show everybody that real quick, just in case they didn't know. And so this is where you created, there it is.
Mm-hmm. Just type it in there.
Okay, and then the next one is your inspection results, because again, there was a concern about commingling this program with your code-based inspections that your fire inspectors actually do. So there's the inspection results, and by putting a prefix in front of it, you're able to delineate what's project life results versus inspection results.
Yes, sir. It's pretty straightforward when you get to looking at it. So it's no smoke and mirrors, hopefully.
All right. And so two more things. Talk a little bit. We've got a question, but we'll close with the question because it's perfect closure for this presentation. Share with the participants how you you come to a brand new records management system in February, and then now you've got, wow, well, here's what the system can do. Maybe we want to use this for our project life. How did you then get that ball rolling, communicate it to the hundreds of the firefighters that you have, and get it to be so successful so early on in the process?
One of the things that makes it an easier transition is that our previous record management system was so old that everybody hated it so bad that the ease of things, it speeds things up so much with emergency reporting. And what's also nice is that emergency reporting is very station friendly, meaning that the way it sets up, it's friendly for the person who's entering the data for them to retrieve what they've done, and so it's meaningful to them. So as we emphasize to that is that it helps. It's not just something that's going to the black hole called fire administration. they get to see, you know, the fruit of their labor, so to speak. As far as getting it training, I do a lot of screen recordings, use Camtasia or one of the other products, and I just go through it, kind of similar to this, of the different steps that are, you know, basically how-to videos. Basically, I'll produce the training, then I'll go over it in a chiefs meeting with them, present it to them, demonstrate it to them. We have a group of people on each shift that basically my district training coaches is what we call them. Bring them up to speed on this, and then they go out and they teach the masses. Now, as far as the other carrot, what makes this nice, the emergency reporting is allowing us where our crews only have to enter data one time, instead of having to enter it, you know, in one system and then come back and enter it into another system, or write it all down and then come back and enter it. They're able to take a tablet, or, you know, what blows my mind is how these young firefighters will actually do it on their phone. They can enter it one time and they're done. So it's a time saver for them, which is, you know, once they start seeing how it is actually going to save them time, and it's going to produce better quality information to allow them get credit for the work that they're doing, it becomes less apprehensive. Are there people that still, it's a computer and they're hoping that it's a fad and computers will go away? Sure. But there is that big generational aspect that, you know, the young firefighters, they all love this. It's the boomers, so to speak, that are a little bit hesitant, but as long as they've got a young person to help them along, they're all about it. But even them, all just kidding aside, they're catching on to it quick. And once they see that it's actually saving them time, you know, they can, you know, as we're figuring out what our end of the month monthly goal reports are, they're liking it, because again, it's a better information for them and they can achieve it easier.
That's outstanding. Chief, we got two questions actually, and then we'll bring this terrific presentation to a close. But I must have missed the reference, but where and how do you get 10,000 plus alarms annually? I don't know if it's a reference to incident alarms or to the actual the actual quantity of smoke alarms that you get. So maybe you can address that, and I'm sorry that I missed the exact reference there.
We'll buy them 2,000 at a time. Again, the city council has allowed us, we buy those out of our tools and equipment budget. And again, because we're emphasizing what we're doing, they agree that it's a good use of taxpayer dollars. The other funding source is we do a 5K run, and we call it Project Life Run, and we use that money and have made a nonprofit that will also buy smoke alarms from there. So the smoke alarms come in, they get divvied out, they'll come into our public education work section. They divvy them out. We also we're starting to keep track of our smoke alarm inventories through ER. We started that actually today, and so yeah, we install now. Like I said, we'll end up somewhere between 8,000 and 10,000 actual smoke alarms installed.
Amazing. That's a lot. Okay, so last question, and your timing's been perfect here. Would you be able to provide an email address? Mitchell's interested in connecting with you about your community service liaison program.
Sure, pretty easy. It is mike.walker@okc.gov.
And guys, I'm putting it in okc.gov, mike.walker@okc.gov, and it is coming out to everybody right now via the chat.
So Tom, is there a way for me how do you want me to get you that workbook?
Just send it to me, email it to me, and then I've got a list of those that are interested in receiving it, and I'll make sure I forward it on to them. I'll CC you, that way they'll have your email. If they've got questions, they can reach back out to you and the person that created that for OKC.
Okay.
Hey, Chief Walker, I can't thank you enough on behalf of the whole training team. I know they're pretty impressed with what you've done with the system, and that your presentation was fantastic as far as showing it and walking through it. And again, if you guys are like me, I would watch something like this, get kind of pumped up, I want to do it, and then you get into the weeds of building it. So certainly go through, review the video once we get the recording posted, and you can kind of see. But the key is that it's that elephant you take a one bite at a time of, right? As you go through it, you know, you got a program that you've got in mind, and then you start looking at the ways you can set the inspection, build the inspection forms, build the inspection types, inspection results, inspection observation values, and then all of a sudden you've got a system that is not only easy for those to use and enter that are going to be doing the work in the field, but also those that need to tell the story and continue the program and celebrate the successes. All right, I've got everybody that has requested the email, the spreadsheet from Chief Walker. I've got it listed here. You've wrote it in as a question. I'll be able to extract those and then get that off to you. So give me, if you don't have it by tomorrow, you'll certainly have it right after the holiday, and we'll get that over to you guys. So thanks for a great virtual Thursday, Chief Walker. Again, on behalf of ER and the entire training team, I know your time is extremely valuable and you're very busy. So thanks for taking time to share the successful program that you have in Oklahoma City with many of our customers today.
Well, thank you for having me, and I hope it was worth everyone's time.
Without a doubt.